It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parable? It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then Jesus said to them, don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parable? It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parables? It's a secret, but it's an open secret. It's plain to all, but only a few see and understand. Then Jesus said to them, don't you understand this parable? Then how will you understand any parables?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear
I don't
you.
know if I can hear you.
Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me?
I
Can you
think
hear me
my
out
mic is
there?
working.
Let's
I
see. Let's
may have
see.
to. Oh, I heard something.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Test 1, 2.
Is
If
anybody
you can
else
hear me
able to
out there in the
hear
chat,
Mr. McMo?
if you can hear me in the chat, let me
Maybe.
know.
The problem is me. The problem is me. Hold on. Hold on. I'll be back. I think the problem is me. Hold on.
My apologies my apologies, everyone. Technical difficulties. At this point, I would like to. Okay, you guys can hear us both. So then the problem is Neil, because I can hear Neil and I can hear myself, obviously, because I talk loud enough for the sound to reach from my pie hole back to my ear holes, my corn holes. Sandy asks if she's in trouble. I don't know, Sandy. Are you in trouble? I hope not. I hope you're not in trouble. Let's pretend there are technical difficulties. Yeah, okay. Well, looks like it was all Neil's fault, which I am happy to report anytime it's not my fault. But yeah, you guys all saw the name of the stream there. It's something I thought of about 15 minutes before I started talking to Neil, which was about 30 minutes ago. And he's at his parents' house. I'm at my parents' house, and we're like, you know what? Screw these parents. Let's go talk to each other and the rest of the internet. um. So yeah, the main point of that title was just to point out that both me and Neil have in common our desire to colonize the conversation with what we want to talk about. And if only people would understand the inside of Kierkegaard or the inside of social evolution and the fact that social groups can be seen as a form of speciation. If only people would get that, then, move over John Lennon's Imagine. We can write a new song about world peace. Yeah, autism levels of topic obsession, but I wouldn't want to false flag or claim. I wouldn't want to claim, it's a little bit stolen valor just because just because I have a special interest doesn't mean I'm autistic. If anything, I'm a social savant. Um, Not to brag. Um, Thanks, Steve, an ass man I see. I'm happy to stick my ass out there for you, Steve. But I guess I'll just post the link in the comments. Hopefully Neil's okay. Let's see. Yeah, it can still be a brag. Okay, Neil's back.
I'm good. As long as we're
I
not
can hear
echoing.
you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Good. I can hear you. We are
No
good.
echo. We are good to go. Okay, I've just rambled, Neil. So now it's your turn to talk.
Ramble on.
What do you think?
Got to sing your song. Yeah.
The chat's already a
Where do you
humming,
want to go?
Well, so I basically
no,
told them the reason for me naming the stream was basically that both of us have an obsession topic that we can't let go of. Which I will say that I'm more obsessed with Kierkegaard than you are with evolution.
You're right. I was gonna say I could let go of it.
But there are, and there are arguably more people willing to talk to me about Kierkegaard than there seem to be people who are willing to talk to you about evolution. So
I think evolution's less popular. That's just my
rather
gut.
than do the friendly thing and talk to you about evolution, I decided to make it non-friendly and make it a debate whose pet project is least loved. But but we don't really have to talk about that. You were kind of I guess you invited me to stream on my own channel tonight. So I was wondering if you had anything that you wanted to talk about, or if we're just chatting.
Well, we were talking. I mean, you planted something on my heart, sir, and now we're gonna radically change the topic.
All
And
right, let's do it.
yeah, what McMo radically planted on my heart, which is a great topic, is like how friendships change over time, over eons, over decades. And yeah, and just watching how people change, sometimes in good ways, sometimes in not so good ways, and just just being along for the ride. And uh it's kind of like, so you asked me about my experience with my fraternity when I was in a fraternity, and if I'm still close to any of those guys in my fraternity. And the answer is not really. I would say there's one. Um, I stayed close with a few for the better part of a decade after college. And I went to actually, I went to the wedding of at least two, maybe more. Um, and but it hasn't. And aside from one guy, that was the guy I was closest to during my time in the fraternity. And honestly, if I didn't keep that friendship, it would be entirely on me, because he's nothing but, like, he's one of the best men I know from a moral standpoint, and just how he conducts himself, and all those things. And yet I've just drifted away. And part of it is that I moved 1,000 miles out to Wisconsin, away from New Jersey, and so I'm just physically not there. That's part of it, but it's not the only part of it, because going back, it's like, it's clear that we are different people. Um, that we have changed, and like, even without, let's say, a radical Christian conversion and a desire to change who I am, even without that, it was already happening, and that only accelerated the process. That only made it weirder. So yeah.
Okay, so maybe what would be a I'm gonna address what you just said, basically, in the sense of, is it just a given fact that people change, and we should not expect friendships to last a lifetime? Uh-oh, Dumir's in the chat. All right, I'm gonna have to just post the link, because I've been meaning to find time to talk to Dumir as well, and he's released some good content recently. If he's
But
got time to talk.
I want to talk. I want to talk about this topic. It's such a good topic.
So, but I guess my question is more like, or my question is, what question are we addressing? Because there's the reality of life's growing apart, and certain individuals kind of having their own life to live. There's a way of addressing it through, like, something like the intimacy crisis, or you could address it through the meaning crisis. Obviously, the concept or topic of um, friendship is certainly something that you've gotten no you've gotten no shortage of, but you could probably deserve more credit for making that your kind of MO in how you operate in the corner. It also tags with the recent JVP, or not JVP, JBP, Jordan Peterson, the gospel series. They talk about your favorite parable, and the importance of using your money to gain friends, and do good.
No, it's
But
not my favorite parable, by the way, but I find that parable. Yeah.
No, right. It's
Probably
your
not
favorite
even in my
parable.
top 10. I kind of hate that parable, but I can't help but be captured by it.
Well, you're kind of, yeah, like, that parable, for in my mind, will always be connected to you now, because of the wonderful conversations we've had about it. But yeah, I guess um there's the idea of friendships ending, and they can end abruptly, or they can end, they can kind of fizzle out, dissolve, um and we see those both ways. But then there's also, like, is there a place for fighting to keep friendships that are difficult, right? When do you abandon your friend to the whole of reality, or do you uh, stay strong until the bitter end, and you kind of always keep a special place in your heart for this person? And if they call you, even though you've had your disagreements, if they call you in the middle of the night wanting to basically get bailed out of jail or something like
Bury a
that,
body. Yeah.
right? Do you do it, or like what? Those, I guess those are all interesting topics we could explore. But I'm still, I think, fundamentally trying to find something that's maybe what I'm doing right now is looking for a paradox, which I should just let
Yeah.
develop on its own.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. My mind goes to a couple of different things. One is that if you marry the friendship to utility, I only listened to the first half so far, but Ups and Afrael's conversation today with that guy, I thought was excellent. The first half that I listened to,
Yep.
where if you marry, let's say the beauty of a friendship, or how the friendship affects you in a positive way, if you marry that to some greater purpose or utility, I think it's actually beneficial, but maybe not for the long term. Like maybe there is such a thing as the best friendships being useless friendships where you have no expectation of one another. But I don't think so, because it's exactly the situation you just laid out there, which is like the most wonderful friendships are the friendships where like somebody calls you in the middle of the night and says like, I have this dire situation and I need you, and you're like, I'm on it. Like let's go, let's do it. Whatever you need. Like that, when those moments happen in my life, like it's little God winks when that happens. It's like I'm in the right place at the right time for the right person. Let's do it. And so that ability to serve a purpose, but also like love the person's heart. I don't know. I love it when those two things happen. When it's like, not only do I get to do the right thing in this magical moment, but I get to do it for someone who like I really love. That's like everything hitting on all 6 cylinders, or maybe an 18-wheeler. Hey, Scott, what's up?
Welcome, Scott. You got any friends, or are we it?
Y'all are it, man. It's really weird. I posed this question to my Discord just like 5 minutes ago, so it was really weird to hear y'all discussing.
You have a Discord?
It's my godfather's Discord, but
Oh, I see.
They're preparing for Christmas over there on that Discord.
They're not preparing. They're in the thick of it, man. This is the third or fourth day of Christmas.
Yeah,
my true
Christmas
love gave to me.
Started, man. Yeah. We don't have to take down our decorations till the Theophany or something like that. But I saw a meme about, they said high school, but the meme was something like, back in the 90s, people expected their friendships in high school just to be, those people would just be their people, like progressively. And I just thought that was just an interesting concept, foreign to me, but it's just an interesting concept. Like just knowing that, like in my life, if you don't have to be together, you ain't together. Like you go to high school, you go to college, everything else is forgotten. You graduate from college, Control Alt Delete. The people at your work are now your new people, and yada yada yada. So the only people that stick around might be your immediate family, but that's not such a given anymore.
Well, I remember, I think it was Peterson who makes this point, just that you want to surround yourself with people who you want to be like, who you want to emulate, or also are challenging you to be better than who you are presently. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I don't know, I saw that with Chad, quite frankly, like that, because like I saw, within Neil, there's this subtle pride of like, oh, look how much I've improved. Look how good I am now. Look where I'm going. Look at the self-improvement. I'm the self-improvement master. And so I look at Chad and like, it's like, man, what he had to deal with, like, 10 times heavier than what I had to deal with. Same with you, Matt, by the way. Same with, like, you're that bucket too. So I look at like where you were or where Chad was. And I was like, geez, like self-improvement, like what I think is self-improvement, it's like nothing. It's like, but not only that, it's like if I notice that my heart and my actions and my habits and like who I am is being changed in a positive direction on a continual basis. And not only that, I love spending time with the people who are doing that. Oh man, that's just like adding insult to injury. It's like hitting, like it's just like, ah, you know, I get to
Yeah,
spend more time with these guys.
Chad says it's not true. He's got it easy. I was gonna say it's not true. Neil's life is way worse than he's letting on.
I have my struggles. It's not
I'm
all
just
it's not
kidding.
all rainbows and lollipops, but
Neil
it's pretty
Neil
good,
was
man.
an absolute heathen. He's whitewashing his own history and how much he needed to improve. He needed a divine intervention from the Lord himself in the Holy Catholic Church. You know, all I needed was to get fired. No, I'm just kidding. Neil was expressing love, and I'm returning it with harshness. Matt, welcome, dude. Bring some
Hey,
light on the
bud.
subject. We've missed you, bro.
Oh gosh, I'm around.
How's the new job? You know,
It's
you
going.
haven't been participating like you used to. We've been worried
No,
about you.
no, man, I'm good. I'm good. Just busting my butt and learning a lot. I don't have any wisdom on it, but where my mind went when Neil was describing that as someone who's a bit of a people person, and can, has been in the kind of a liminal state around different demographics, if you will. It almost it reminds me of I think it's the C.S. Lewis quote that Seabax had let me in on it, where a friend is like when you notice like, oh, you too, like where you're paying attention to the same thing, or even maybe more broadly, your orientation is similar. And so that doesn't, whether it's millionaires in throughout the family, or if it's roughnecks that I've met on the job, or people struggling in the streets that I've connected and stayed with in as most optimal way as I could. It's definitely just the way they're comporting themselves, and what I guess that why that brought up is like the self-improvement, right? It is this kind of this aiming and this striving that I think that coalesces for me. That's when it's a blessing and a curse, but you meet all these different types of people and all these different walks of life and totally different stories, but then you see, oh well, I'm aiming for something too, and I'm taking steps forward to that too. And anyways, that's something that's kind of how I've in my life. I don't have a huge friend group, but those are the people that are really kind of stuck, or the stickier folks. And yeah.
All right, let me put some stuff on the table, and let me kind of play the let me be provocative. Let me try to provoke some disagreements. Okay. It's often touted as wisdom, and the type of wisdom that one learns in a hard way and so must automatically be respected, for someone to say, yes, but sometimes in love you need to set up boundaries, or you have to part ways. And I'm purposely caricaturizing this currently because I've recently had conversations with people who have told me about doing this. Actually, I'll just say it was Sherry. Me and Sherry had a conversation about her past where she had to cut off some friends for particular reasons, and it was one of the best things she ever did. And they proved who they were when she basically gave them the notice of like, hey, for your health and my health and just the betterment of both of our lives, I need to not to be in my life. And maybe it's not permanent, but it is for now. And she basically learned that all of those friends were more than okay with that being the last time they ever spoke to her. And so I'm not talking about Sherry, but I'm also trying to be provocative, which is to say that statement of sometimes the most loving thing you can do is cut somebody off. And oftentimes when I hear that, I am struck by a certain air of self, and I didn't get this with Sherry. I want to caveat that. I'm not trying to speak ill of Sherry. I shouldn't have brought her up before while I'm doing this weird playing the provocateur game. So I apologize, Sherry. But so there, that said, and you can hear, who's the cowboy guy that Grim always plays a video? He's got the deep voice, and you can hear him saying, sometimes the most
That-
loving thing you can do as a man is to
dude,
cut off your brother. And what
don't
I
make
want to
fun.
say is,
That's actually Scott's father. Don't make fun of that guy.
yeah, I'm just thinking about Scott actually. Now, but like whenever I hear that, I want to say, no, you're a coward. No, stick in there, take your lumps. Be like John the Apostle, who heard about one of his disciples turning from the faith and crawls on hands and knees, begging him to return. And you get the sense that, and it's also the other thing that I'm wanting to bring up here is the idea of boundaries, and so it's kind of given in today's parlance that boundaries are kind of this psychologically healthy thing that psychologically healthy people set up and maintain. And, uh, Christ did not seem to have very many boundaries, So I'll put that
I'll
on the
go
table.
first.
And then one more thing before I mute myself. Afriel, I see that you're back screen, but I need to see your camera on before I allow you in. Just a sign of life. Okay, I see you. You can turn it back off if you want, but I'm adding you. Please, Scott, proceed.
I'm a big fan of boundaries. First of all, I believe in the principle you can't really force yourself on others, so there's that. There's some people that you just don't agree with anything on, or everything's difficult, yada yada. But I'll say this, and I've said this to people about people in my parish, the church. There's people I don't talk to in the parish. There's people that have different personalities or weird quirks or you name it, and there is a sort of separation there. But the way I joined the circle is it doesn't matter who it is in my parish. If I get a call at 1 a.m. in the morning from anybody in my parish, I'm morally obligated to jump and do what's right for the people in my parish, regardless if we're like super friends or whatever. But that doesn't mean I have to like include them in everything that my family life does. There's certain people that are closer and further away to, my family life or my intimate life. And that's one way I square the circle. If anybody else has a comment, go ahead.
I think it's a mistake
Yeah.
to try and be everyone or everything for everyone. That one, you physically can't do that, and two, there's going to be other people who are better suited to fill those roles for those people at those moments in their lives. By the way, how's my audio? Is that?
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
Could be better.
Let me try speakerphone.
Well, I can go real quick. I had to. Well, first, I kind of lived this on the other end on my family kind of having to draw the line and put some boundaries up and basically draw a threshold that says, hey, you've broken this threshold. You're kind of on your own here, and it did work out. And then in most regards. And then the other way is I have a sister who she's climbing out of the gutter right now. She got a lot of mental issues and was dabbling very heavily in a lot of narcotics or whatever. And the family had to do that same thing. So this topic it's very relevant to me. It's very very I've lived through some of these framings and some of that provocation, and where she's at today, on her way out, about to be out of the state of South Carolina's custody, got a good job, looking to go move out and live on her own. I think the way that it was for me and what I've just intuitively and instinctively kind of just paying it forward is I'm her biggest fan, man. I sit there and talk to her on the Facebook Messenger a lot, and every step that she's willing to take forward, I'm there cheering her on and and praising and encouraging that she keep going. But that doesn't that doesn't refute the process that had to take place for her to realize, like, hey, she had gone too far. She had broken too many she had broken too much trust and hurt too many people, and she was spiraling out into a way to where it all worked out, thank God. But in the end, there was a loving by kind of by no longer loving in a really rough way to say it.
Yeah, so what's interesting to me about that too is that that's a situation with your family. So there's a level of filial piety involved with that as well. There's an element of kind of honor culture in that too. Um, that's the kind of trade-off, right? Like your family has to take care of you until you dishonor them to a certain extent, and then obviously I'm reading this in the most uncharitable way as possible, but like I'm still playing provocateur, I guess. But
Playing.
yeah, go ahead.
Playing.
It's just a game, dude. It's just a prank.
Uh-huh.
Well, there's so in economics, to bring things back to really unpopular corner topics. In economics, there's something called game theory, and game theory works basically tit for tat. But I'm going to put a Christian spin on game theory, meaning the Christian spin is I think the rule should be, you should always be a little bit more vulnerable than you really should be, meaning you go a little bit beyond the level of vulnerability that society would say is good vulnerability. Like, especially, and this is where the right brain really comes into play for me. Like something, my spider sense has to tingle, and I'm just like, no, let's do it. I have this neighbor that I've walked by I've walked by his house maybe for like 3 years, like at least 2 years. It's been a long time. And I sometimes, he's always busy, like doing stuff, or he's got his granddaughter. So like he was busy with that, and I didn't want to, just barge in and then finally, like, and I've always just waved at him and never actually stopped and talked. And then finally, for whatever reason, like I was like, no. I think it was more of a right brain instinct in that moment. I was like, I'm going to talk to this guy. And I like within the first 15 minutes of talking to this guy, like I opened up that my brother had passed away. And it's like, you don't do that in like a casual, like when you meet someone. It was probably within like 10 minutes of talking to him, to be honest. But now if that didn't go well, if that went south, obviously I would pull back a little bit, and it's more of a dance. But the excitement of a friendship dance is like, the excitement is the okay, I'm going to open up and I'm going to see what happens. And it's like a little adventure with that person. I'm just going to open up, be raw. I did that with McMo, actually, on the second date with McMo. It was good. It might have even been the first date. I don't know. Where I was talking about my friends. Yeah, I won't bring it up, but yeah. But like, I don't know. It's moments like that like, you don't get those opportunities to be raw and vulnerable very often. So when they come up, yeah, I don't know. I've learned to just not. I worry as much about the opportunities that I've what's the word? Passed over. Yeah, yeah. Then the things that I've done. I think a lot of people kind of struggle a lot with the things that they've done. I don't know why I don't struggle with that quite as much, but like not doing the thing that I should. That's something I think about constantly too. So yeah.
Well, we all want to be helpful, right? We all want to contribute, and I think vulnerability allows another to be helpful. So like we're helping someone to be helpful.
Or at least allowing them the opportunity to be.
Yes.
Well, and this is probably my pride talking, but like, one justification I have for doing this stuff on the internet is like, so many people struggle to have basic face-to-face human interactions that they might actually need to learn the art of talking to other people. And maybe we're actually demonstrating how to do that. And they can't learn it in a public setting because they don't, let's say many people who are stuck at home or Peterson talks about this in terms of the person who's either scared of going out in public, or is scared of interactions. And maybe you get to a point where you don't have any clubs, you don't have any family, you don't have any this, and then it's like, where do you get your practice and social interactions from? And anyway, so I mean, this seems so weird and contrived that we're doing this thing online to, and I don't think this is the primary purpose. I'm not saying that this is the primary purpose of what we're doing, but like, I think we do showcase a certain kind of dance, a certain kind of back and forth that, I don't know. I think it's a good thing. I think it's not a bad thing to showcase that.
Agreed.
To your point, Neil, there's levels of intimacy that there's a wide spectrum online for intimacy, in the sense that you can pop onto a Discord stream with people you don't know, or the people that you're talking about who might be socially awkward in person or whatever, but you can kind of like show them mercy by just listening, or being a constructive listener. And you can also have something like that the bromance that you and Chad have. Like, all that's available in the online space. Versus like I'm not gonna, the person that's maybe has no human interaction, is socially awkward, I'm not gonna immediately invite them into my house. Just like Chad's not gonna take somebody he's mentoring in AA, invite them directly into the family setting. That's just not the appropriate, space for that.
Careful about who you say you're not going to invite or allow in your house. That's been grounds for fights in these here parts in the past. But I will say, so Matt C brought this up one time in Discord, the idea of TLC being like a training ground for like a certain type of social skill. And to be honest, I'm not really buying it. I kind of don't think that might be a nice, second order effect of what's going on here. But if this is a type of social training, as the guy who boasted earlier in the stream of being a social savant, I will say that for anybody out there wondering who's not good at social stuff, what Neil did on our second quote unquote date, where he just unleashed this horrendous tragic story, that is not best practices. That is a very, very risky move. You might get hurt doing that kind of thing. You might tell somebody and they don't give one rat's ass about your life. They may in fact be overwhelmed. Yeah, they may be overwhelmed that they may see that as a type of emotional exhibitionism. Or maybe kissing on the first date or something. It's a little too forward, they might say. And this isn't to critique Neil, because I think me and Neil we both felt that there was something special in the air that night. Neil did the right thing, but it's such a game of finesse. And in order to see it as a game, you either kind of have to be autistic or a little bit sociopathic or narcissistic. And those are actually things that we need to be running away from. So I think that like there's an element, it's not about necessarily learning social skills or even learning how to talk extemporaneously on the live open internet. It's much more, in my opinion, it should be much more about the kind of simple friend building stuff that goes on. And in this area of the internet, I think the way we make friends is we talk about weird ideas and concepts that are kind of on the avant-garde of the philosophical and the religious. And it just so happens that we've found some people who the spirit is easy to participate in for each of us individually, or easy enough for it to be rewarding. But I wouldn't want us to get carried away that like we could sell a like Andrew Tate style course on like how to gain male friends over the internet, talking about smarty pants things, even though that's kind of what we're doing.
Did you see the Andrew Tate video that he posted of him working out by himself in like a living room decorated for Christmas? It's really sad. It's really depressing.
Well, and also to your point, Mo, vulnerable is vulnerable. Like that, they could prey on you. They can they can nefariously pounce on whatever issue, whatever aspect. And there's something I've been thinking about recently, and I think I can tie in as goes sense making and kind of the atomized, so over the individual collective thing, but the atomized individual, the bowling alone dynamic, conversations, just being devastated. And so if just bear with me, if sense making and intimacy could be on or at least relevant in a relationship on a continuum, or at least participating in some aspect together, and perhaps trust being the binding issue, to what degree, if through distributed cognition, then to what degree have you totally dissolved the Western humans ability to sense make, if they are not in these trustworthy sense making communities? And so it seems like we were all kind of attending to this thing, and we all started to stand and orient in a somewhat trustworthy way, and the thing was able to coalesce to where we were able to just say it's that dance, and it grows bigger, and it's that reciprocal opening to where you have that moment with Mo, and then Mo has this more insight about you, and then can give back, and then you spiral up, and it's I just that's where I think is one of my favorite things about this, because I think PBK just had a couple videos back about this sense making communities, and I think that's totally right, and I think the way to do that is through these very vulnerable, trusting relationships and dramatic dialogues. Like, and if there's not going to be something very raw and personal to speak about, well, how about there's these cutting edge, controversial ideas to speak about that actually matter, that are at the cutting edge of their fields, that are really making waves.
Not too cutting edge though. We don't want to get people banned.
Well said. Well said. I see that we've got a girl dad with quite the beard, or it may just be, it's Ortho Chad. I see. One of the early church fathers of TLC, the TLC father, if you will.
Saint Chad the Maximus. So yeah. I had two things that I wanted to throw out there. Oh, I do want to come back to this word overwhelmed, because I think like so many people today have this sense of being overwhelmed, and maybe I'm the weird one that I'm not. And I feel like I want to be filled up more with, I don't know, the people in this space. Like that's it in some ways I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just wanting to receive all of you more. So maybe it's just inflated expectations and wanting real life events and all that fun stuff. But anyway, so we can come back to overwhelmed. In my more, what's the word? Projecting flighty moments of fancy. I think what we're doing is something like Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, or even more fanciful is like we're learning to fly again. And everybody's out there in Captain Hook land and like doing the regular thing, and we're over here learning to fly and play and think and dream and all those things. I like that. Matt. You should pin your own thing. Overwhelm is the reasonable response to the combinatorial explosive reality without faith. Yeah. So we can go in either direction. You want to talk about Peter Pan, or you want to talk in the Lost Boys learning to play, or you want to talk about overwhelmed?
Well, since we have Ortho Chad here, I know that he's got a good framing for boundaries versus barriers. I don't want to go too far back in the conversation, but I was going to point it out earlier and then I forgot. But yeah, remind me, Chad, what's your distinction there? It's that like barriers are what other people have that you don't allow yourself to cross, and boundaries are, or is it vice versa? Boundaries are fences you put up. What was the distinction there again?
It's something that I discovered in my own failure to have no boundaries. And what I realized is I didn't really have like, I had principles that I that I could espouse and talk about, but I actually didn't even realize that I wasn't living up to them. So, there were ideals that I wanted to be able to kind of live inside of, and to be able to follow, like things like, no premarital sex, things like this. And what I found was that I was spiritually sick and vacant at the end of kind of one of those episodes that was playing out for a long, long, long time, and somehow I realized that I like this all started with I realized that I wouldn't sleep with somebody unless I actually unless I knew that I liked the person at least. So this is not a great ideal, I guess, for people to have, but if you're going to have a loose ideal, maybe this is better than no ideal. So the ideal that I came to was, because beforehand I would just like be promiscuous. I wouldn't even wait until I found out if I liked the person. I just thought that they looked good or something, and we would hook up, and that would be it. And then that left me very sick for a while. And then I found that I set up what I realized was the boundaries I had been living by were the barriers that other people had set up. So I didn't have my own boundaries that I was willing to stay inside of. You understand? And so I realized that I had to create boundaries for my own, like my own arena of action that I would be able to work within, and that I won't go outside of. So that is I think a really good idea. A boundary is something that I adhere to, or a principle that I adhere to no matter what. And then a barrier is something that I might put up if you're going to kind of cross the line with me and possibly tempt my boundaries, then I got to say no. So there are barriers that I'm going to set up around me. In other words, and oftentimes they will work really well hand in hand. Like I don't have to worry about being promiscuous if I'm living up to the boundary of not being on. I don't have to worry about adultery if I'm not like stepping outside of my boundaries of being a husband. You know what I mean? So the barrier is the ring is a barrier. That's a good barrier. That shows other people I'm married. Don't go there. The boundary is I'm going to appear what the ring stands for.
What I'm hearing in that, to kind of tie it back into what Neil was saying too, is that like that seems like a type of strategy that's working for you in response to or you could either say it's in the response to the overwhelming temptation is one way to put it, or like entropy, or just the tendency for humans to fuck themselves up and over. And so you have a system or a strategy or guardrails, barriers, and boundaries that kind of help you through that process of kind of like Peter Pan coming back to the real life, right? Like, or the real world kind of a thing. Peter Pan growing up. These are, because as I'm hearing you say that, I'm of course thinking of like it in terms of sobriety, but it also seems that like, especially when you frame it in more of the like sexual realm or the marital fidelity realm, there's an interesting way in which, so I guess two things. One is the way in which that seems to be, it's like that, well, I guess I should form it in a question. The question is, do you think that is, there's two ways to put it. Is that you being a law unto yourself? Or is that you having the law in your heart? Or is that you, is that something for just you individually that you found to work? Or do you think that there's a greater pattern afoot in terms of, you could almost say if everyone treated their lives or their relationships with this sort of boundary and barrier keeping, that some of the, some of the pains or some of the harms of relationships ending or needing to end, there's at least kind of a toolkit that you have in those situations for like, this is why, because you'll hear
Well,
people say basically like, this is a boundary for me. I'm sorry.
yeah, so I think there's a greater pattern that was always there. But I had to apparently say F all that and just be a total blind man walking Protestant and do it my way, and realize that my way was bullshit and destroy myself in the process. And then it's like, and then you concede that they were right. And so, no, it's not a law unto myself or anything like that. It's because I didn't invent this. I didn't invent, no premarital sex. That's not something I would invent, but somebody else did. And so I just realized that the things that the wisdom that others had been trying to pass down for a long time was actually wisdom. And that I should probably try to pay attention to what that stuff is.
What just came to me,
I will often, I'm the dunce who has to repeatedly hit the wall to actually avail myself to the wisdom that is there.
Right. Well, it's not just a, it's not just a dunce, and people might hear you and think that you're self-hating or something. But what I'm hearing you say is really more of like a Psalm 23. Like, this is what it means in Psalm 23 for one, for us to be sheep. It's a good metaphor, and Sherry will be the expert here. But like in Psalm 23, when we say, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me, the rod and the staff are basically like the boundary barrier. It's what's keeping the bad guys out, and it's also what's making sure that the sheep go where they're supposed to go, and maybe they don't fall off a cliff, and if they do, you hook them up, kind of a thing, right? And so there's a sense in which this is also the aspect of delighting in the law of the Lord, right? Where so those are the things I heard you saying in that, which is, I just thought that was all very, very good, very helpful for me. Sherry, welcome.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I wasn't sure if I should jump in with all the Peter Pan Lost Boy stuff.
Oh, that's a good topic, actually. It's one I've actually talked to Neil.
But I'm like, wait, there's also other people.
Lost Boys need their Wendy.
Since you think it's such an interesting topic, Chad, it's struck. I always thought there was a negative connotation to that narrative. Leader of the Lost Boys, in Never Neverland, never growing up. But then it just struck me in this conversation. There's also, do you see the relevance here? Or maybe I'm connecting dots that probably shouldn't be connected. But what is it? Again, Mr. Biblically Illiterate. In the Bible, it also says to be childlike, right? Is like the optimal orientation.
I want to talk about this because the whole Peter Pan story is an analog to the story of King David and his Lost Boys. King David, David had maybe 100 guys out in the wilderness when Saul was running the entire, Jewish people. It was like 100 guys out in the wilderness. That was it. Tiny band. And, and he was a Peter Pan character. He was raiding Saul and he had a chance to kill him 3 times, didn't do it. Peter Pan-like character, Captain Hook. And Saul kept trying to get what he wanted. And that was Captain Hook in a nutshell. Scared. And Saul was constantly scared of his own vulnerability. He was constantly scared that David was undermining him. No, seriously, like it's a direct parallel.
So the question I have is, are all the women in this space, are they all Wendy's, or what? What's the deal?
I put the question
if that's the case, then you guys have a bigger problem.
Well, I'm curious. I know what brings men here because Yeah, I think I do. Like, what would you say brings women here, Sherry? I
Neil
don't know the answer
Neil
to that.
speaks for all of us.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
I do speak
The
for all men.
The apex male, the alpha speaks for the pack.
I can't speak for all the women, but I came here actually for the reasons that you guys were, or McMo actually was saying earlier, were no reasons. I came here to learn how to articulate myself and to learn from others. Because I think that it's really hard to find conversation partners for these kinds of things. The kinds of topics that we like to talk about. And I know for myself, because I didn't have a conversation partner for many years, I had a very difficult time saying what I was experiencing and thinking about. And that's just gotten better over time because of the ability to have these kinds of conversations with other people. And so that's, and I've said this many times in this space, that's the big reason why I'm here. Yeah, that's really it. To learn and to learn how to say the things that I really want to say. Because I wasn't good at it when I first started.
Yeah, I think that you're demonstrating the proper humility with which one should enter a space like this. That is to say, it's not how I entered it, or at least not how I was thinking of it. Because I was definitely more, I think, consciously trying to, I wouldn't say learn how to communicate, but try to figure out how to convince people or to share the ideas that I thought I had stumbled upon. And I really wanted to, get them out. But I think more subconsciously, it was just the lack of fellowship. And one of the things, I mean, I've told this story before, but I had a falling out with a friend where I, in the heat of the moment, smacked him upside the head because he had grabbed my dog in a kind of fast and violent way. And so there was and because I didn't live near that group of friends, I felt a real kind of distancing from them. And so when I started participating more in TLC, it was, I think, really a lot about just needing some friends, like what PVK always says, like needing to see and be seen. And yeah, Nathan J. Franco knows. Yeah, I was a Grim Grizz fan for a long time before I started participating. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the type of thing where, and maybe this would be a good thing, is like many people coming together for many different reasons and finding different things. When
you say that, if you walked into a bar and interviewed everybody and asked them why they were there, would they all have the same answer? I don't think so.
Right.
Or church.
No, but I bet there would be common themes. I bet there would be common themes, Well,
there's always common threads, but I think people go and do things for really personal reasons,
The bar is where the real Lost Boys hang out. We're the found boys.
They don't even, sometimes they don't even know what those reasons are.
Yeah, I think that the common threads are going to end up becoming kind of more of the binding thing in the long run.
Always, yeah.
And so thus they kind of they're more telodic. So I think they're more important in some way. Like I think it is important to not forget. Okay, so like I actually like the Hook story better than the Peter Pan story. Not the Captain Hook, but like the story, the movie Hook, where with Robin Williams, where he was once Pan and then he grew up and he forgot about Neverland, and then Tinkerbell comes to bring him back, and Rufio is the new Pan, right? But like he ends up getting knocked off by Robin Hood, or Robin Williams' character. He rediscovers his panness. So I think like what I mean by this is that it is important to remember, I think, kind of the spirit of the thing that brought you here, or whatever that may be for you. But it's, I think, possibly as a individual person, I think that's important to remember. But as whatever this is turning out to be, it's more it's important to try to recognize what are the common threads. Now, I think that there's a danger in I think almost everybody here in some ways is like Pan, right? In some ways, because you're all visible characters. So if you become a visible character in this little corner of the internet, you end up taking on a kind of you're not just Sherry, you're not just Matthew Parlato, you're not, you kind of end up taking on this little bit of an extra layer of character, comic book character. These are just my opinions. And I was listening to Jacob's stream today, and he had some good things to say, I thought, about handoffs and things like this. Not everybody can just stick around forever and be Peter Pan. You know what I'm saying? In the way that I just laid out, you have to be like the Peter Pan in the Hook movie, who ends up going back home to be the father, who ends up being responsible, but whilst not forgetting the playfulness that you rediscovered. So that's what I'm discovering is like, I have a lot of concern and thought about where stuff is heading. A lot. So much so that I was going to ask Neil if he wanted to have a conversation about this today, but I didn't really know how to address it. But I guess I just kind of say like, and like, I want to be able to just walk away, because I think it would be wise to do that. I think it would be responsible for me to return home and do that. But I don't want to just do that without first trying to leave some kind of helpful stuff behind for somebody else, for the next people who come along to play Pan. And because you can't stay Pan forever. Joey couldn't do it. Job couldn't do it. Andrea the Banks couldn't do it. All the folks that were once really visible characters eventually kind of move along, and that's good. I'm just having difficulty letting go, because I am going to have to let go. I'm like, ideally, after 2020, Midwestuary 2025, I'm out. Almost entirely, because I don't manage well. I don't play hobby well. I don't hobby well, and I can't just learn how to do that. I don't just do Peter Pan halfway. I'm all the way Peter Pan all the time, and it's just a boundary that I know about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could learn to be both, or is that just not in the cards?
No.
No, but I understand the need for leaving behind some kind of.
Some people can do it. I can't do it. The reason why I know I can't do this is if were the case, I would just be able to like have a 6-pack of beer once in a while and just be okay.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
No, I was going to say, I understand the, the decision, like that's all good. And the acknowledgement that, you're gonna, it's all or nothing, I guess, for you. So, but if that's going to be how it goes, then why are you worried?
Worried about what? I'm not really worried.
Well, you said you wanted to have a conversation with Neil because you mentioned something being
because
dangerous.
I want to be able to try to, like I said, the worry is an egotistical worry, is that I leave and and then it all falls apart. So that's very egotistical of me.
Well, a lot of things will fall away when you leave, Chad, because
Yeah.
you're holding that space.
Mhm.
And when you leave that space becomes a vacuum, right? So like that's a natural, that's going to happen, you know, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Like I've used this analogy before where I was walking through the woods and a bunch of big old growth fir had fallen down all together, like three huge trees. And it was absolute chaos. Like they took out so many trees with them and you couldn't get past it all. And it was sad, you know, but then I looked up and I'm like, wow, there's so much more light here. And there's room for growth now, right? Like there's room for other things to come in and fill up that space. And there's a really excellent point about chaos, that it is out of that creation happens, right? Like there is no creation without chaos. And so in a sense, you could hopefully anticipate some great good coming out of maybe the ensuing chaos that happens, because that'll you know, things have to settle, right? So yeah.
So one of the patterns that I want to try to do, because I do want to try to, rather than do all or nothing, is I am going to try to, before I make the decision to fully walk out, I am going to try to lightly continue to do like maybe the Rolling News thing and maybe the Not Estuary thing. So I can just do less and I can focus on my family. And then when I want to have, and I have time to play, I could do that. I am going to try that. But I don't have any expectations how that's all going to play out. The things that I wanted to talk with Neil about are like trying to point to things that I have found that were really helpful that I picked up along the way in the fellowship as a whole. Things that we do, like we so-and-so invented this kind of way of using the medium, and so then we took that and then we used that, and then other things that, you know, or pointing or reaching over and up and down mostly, but sometimes reach up, things like this. I wanted to talk about those kinds of things to encourage people who might feel like they can step out of the lurk and come play. Like, here's some tools that you can use that might be helpful for your journey in doing that. Those are the kinds of things I want to do.
Yeah.
Those
So
are the kinds of things I want to do.
what keeps popping up for me is like two things. One, well, the first thing is very general, which is it's almost like PVK's thing that hierarchies bind and blind. It's occurring to me how stories can bind and blind, just in the sense that, like, as I was hearing Chad talk about the Peter Pan and that kind of being, and even this is kind of to echo Sherry's main kind of point when she hopped on, was the fact in which we aren't really the Lost Boys. You know, we don't typify Peter Pan here. Some of us are, you know, we're all here for different reasons. But the thing that happens with stories, and why this is still true what Chad said, is because Chad is like approaching a threshold moment for his entire life, and it's way more important than his participation in a YouTube community. And so it makes obvious sense to me that and so here's the point, is that we're always leaving, if we're going in the right direction, we're always leaving Peter Pan behind, right? That we're always trying to make the move that pushes us towards maturity, and that being built up, and that kind of being poured out, and our lives being more about love and less about self. And so to the extent that anyone is here for the purposes of self, it seems like an obvious improvement that they would make changes towards a life of love. But I think that there are lots of people here who the Peter Pan them was not participating. It was consuming, and it was not breaking the fourth wall. It was buying into the mind control. And so I think that there's a way in which we probably need a better story than Peter Pan
Yeah,
in some
please.
regards, but I've just never been that big of a fan of Peter Pan. So bias on the
That's why I
table.
come on here, because you know what? Peter Pan is a sad story, and if that's the situation that you gentlemen find yourselves in, I'm sad for you. Like, seriously, I would not. And I would never think of any of you as lost boys, and that's a compliment.
I feel like Hook is
I think
probably
it
the
takes courage. I think it takes courage, and it takes stamina to do something like what Chad's been doing, what Neil's been doing, what Afriel's doing, Matthew, McMo, and it comes from a place of care and love. That's where it's coming. That's the motivation. And those are good things. And the Lost Boys were not motivated by love, and they didn't have much stamina.
I think they were, though, within each other. At least I'm going off the Hook version that Chad's talking about. They loved each other.
The original, because I'm old.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't remember Hook.
Two of the comments I'll make is I'm a big fan of organic movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really don't. I'm not big on the talk on where is this going? What should we be doing?
Yeah.
What's the growth pattern? How is this be bigger? I want people to just organically participate and just let it be. And then the second is there's nothing wrong with handling whatever it is right in front of you to handle, like for anybody. And like in Chad's instance, with the care he's put into his brand and his YouTube channel, I mean, I can maybe understand a sentiment of like maybe leaving something that you built in a lesser state or leave it behind, but we should never. I'll just say there's nothing wrong with handling whatever's before you that's for you to handle.
Right.
Nothing ever wrong with that.
I wanted to tell you guys something personal, and I'm telling you because of online communities and being online and all the quandaries. Like, I've been listening to this conversation for 6 years, and so my son got married on the 20th of December in Berlin, and my husband is there, and he was also there for Christmas. So I was here by myself, and the reason I'm in my living room is because I have my desktop set up in here because I'm hanging out with my family online. And I was attending the wedding on FaceTime, like the ceremony, on my daughter's phone, but, she brought me over to my son before the bride arrived, and he started to cry, and we cried, and, and then for the dinner, they had they rented a venue that had a boardroom in it. It had a huge big screen TV at the end. And then there was microphones inlaid on the boardroom table. It was a small group for the meal. And I could hear everything that everyone was saying perfectly clearly. It didn't sound like a mumble. And they could hear me. And I was at the dinner. We toasted. I had my bottle of champagne in my glass, and I gave a speech. And I also spent Christmas that way with my kids. So, and here's the thing, I live a very embodied life. Like, I spent the day trying to get a tractor to start today. It was so frustrating. It's still not working. I can't get out my driveway because it's not plowed. So I'm stuck. And I don't have any problem with this, hanging out with you guys in my living room, just as I hang out with my kids. I'm not a lost girl. I don't have an addiction to the internet. I enjoy the conversations. I'm learning from everybody. Everybody has completely enriched my life. everybody here. And I can honestly say that I love all the people that I know in this community. I really love them. So I just wanted to tell you guys about that, because without that technology, I would have completely missed being at my son's wedding and Christmas with my kids. And my 1.5-year-old grandson, who doesn't get screens, okay, he's not a screen kid, but he does talk to Nanny on FaceTime all the time. That's me. And he'll want to talk to Nanny. And he says things like, tickle, 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 tickle. And he kisses me and he plays peekaboo and we read books. And it's real.
Yeah, I don't have any terrible things to say about the technology. I've had it's been incredible. And I want to, and I should probably go spend some time with Ann before. We're having a family party tomorrow. She's taking a nap. Got it all ready to rock and roll. Made a bunch of mashed potatoes, going to make some ham, and my mom's going to bring enchiladas. My brother is going to show up. He and my nephews and my sister-in-law have never been to the house yet, so it'll be really cool. There'll be like 30 people here tomorrow. It'll be absolutely cool. So, yeah, no, I don't have anything bad. This adventure has been one of the most incredible and interesting adventures I've ever done. Mm-hmm. It is not without a cost. It's not free, and I don't mean monetary. Although, well, thankfully, Upcycle paid for a year of StreamYard, which you got those kinds of things that are incredible. But there's another cost, which is, it's not just, I can't just do this unthinkingly. And so, I really loved the whole thing. And part of the cost of that is like having difficulty with comments of people and stuff like that. Like, I wish I didn't care, honestly. Like, some of you folks that can just like, it just like water off your back. It's just like whatever. And I read a comment on somebody, like, they were totally shitting on the commercial that we made, and that it was like a slimy commercial, like it was tasteless and
absolutely tasteless.
Yeah, and they're like, blaming Vanderclay for this and that. Estuary is totally a grift. It's like, if it's a grift, who the fuck's making money? First of all, like, seriously, people, are you paying attention to anything? All of this is ground up. Everybody's just helping out. There's nobody's getting rich around here. So,
Chad, you didn't see Alan's reporting after the Northwestuary event?
Yeah,
I know. We're not.
Nobody's getting rich yet.
That's how Chad was able to afford such a luscious beard.
I know. That my wife gave me so that I can woo my nephews with goofiness. So yeah, it's just ridiculous. And the people what I find funny is there will be naysayers who shit on this, and yet they continually watch it, and they project whatever the hell it is that they think they see onto it. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Or
Chad, just a reminder, we're on my channel, so I don't have any naysayers, bro. I got 100, 200 in my dreams, adoring fans out there. If you're here, you're not a naysayer in my book. I don't care what Ortho Chad says. You can be here. No, I'm just kidding. I know what you're talking about.
One of my favorite things about our community, and this might be self-serving, but I love those of us that get it. Like, I don't know if you want to call it the secret mysterious center or the core or whatever that is. I love the people that are on here that get it, and we don't have to say the words. We just have a rapport with each other, and we kind of know what it is without saying it. And all the people doing the trolling or the complaining or the the internet stuff. It's just like, it's like I'm here for the people that, for y'all, that it's like, oh, these are my people. We get it.
Mhm, mhm.
So
Yeah,
Well,
back in the
I'll do my best to not complain so much, guys. I can't help it.
Chad, the corner is not going to be the corner without you. It's not.
You guys will be enhanced.
Neil's
It'll
been
be- It'll
Neil's
be
been mind controlled by too many 80s movies. That was just straight 80s John Hughes mind control. The corner will always be the corner, and Chad made it that way. Thank you, Chad, for all you've done.
yeah, exactly.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank McMosa for that sweet, smooth jazz on that commercial.
Anytime.
With that, I can't wait to make another jam with you. Thank you all for your time and attention, and for listening to me.
Thank you, sir.
Ramble. Much love. Good night.
Thanks, Chad. Bye-bye.
I'm still going to call him every day. So
I'm
We're not gonna let you leave, Chad.
I'm gonna completely forget about him. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
like I'm
That's not even possible.
I'm just looking forward to being the top brander for Grim Grizz. Once Chad steps away, I'm going to be top dog.
Well, how much do you guys want to bet that Chad will be back?
well, every bear has a hibernation period, and it might be a long time.
We'll see.
I mean, assuming this is still around 10 years from now, like once people's like, because a big part of it's going to be as people start having kids, like that's going to take up a lot of their time and attention. So they're not going to necessarily have that to devote to this. But as the kids start growing up and they start to get some of that time back, I feel like even if Chad doesn't contribute content wise, he's still probably going to be listening in on a lot of stuff. And so it's going to be one of those, he'll find a time and a place to step back in when it's appropriate. That's the impression.
clock on the wall. On the 7th day of December 1941, it struck the 11th hour. Every hour after that has been, will be, 0 hour.
Well,
You know,
he still has a great
that's the
time.
real. Yeah, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. You know, say not tomorrow we'll go such and such and do such and such, but say if the Lord wills, then we may go and do such and such. So
Amen.
I'm not going to take the bait, Sherry, and place any bets. I was raised Southern Baptist, and I think gambling's a sin. Probably, maybe not.
Never. I've never put in a casino except for the restaurant.
I go in the casino just so I can smoke inside.
There you go.
Between Noah and Afrael and others, we're going to have a video game to TLC, the real video game pipeline. That's what I hope will happen.
Very cool.
Hmm.
I want to circle back, if I may. We were talking about threads and different reasons for arriving here. And maybe it's too vague, and so maybe it doesn't have much relevance or interest. But is there maybe a meta thread of searching and finding that which the culture was lacking, that which we couldn't find not here? And again, I think learning and sense making, right? I mean, if I'm making sense of something, I'm coming to learn. I'm coming to learn about a new phenomenon, an aspect of a person I didn't know, or their perspective, and I think there, and I don't love the negation of it, so that's what I kind of just want to bring up to see if we can chew on it. Perhaps is if we were all out in the world and we saw that the conversations were empty, they were rhetorical talking points. The manner in which people were treating each other was not with the care and love, and there was a total evaporation of trust that allows these relationships and these distributed cognitions to blossom and thrive. I think there may be a meta thread that, yeah, we all had different, specific journeys, and we even, to a degree of specific interests, but I think there is a yeah, just I think there might be a coalescing kind of North Star there that, it's I've said it many times. It's like I feel like this is the fellowship that I'd always been looking for. This is very much the 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 deep and dramatic conversations about all the aspects of the human experience that I had grown up loving, and I remember noticing one Christmas that it had all fractured. It was all gone, and way overnight, and not because I had kind of checked out in my life, but I remember coming back online and seeing like, oh, something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong. I didn't tend to the garden, and neither did anybody in my family, and it was forever broken. And there's strides and some progress to mend that, but it's nothing like I have with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, how many people do you know can speak John Vervaeke?
Not very many.
You got to talk to somebody about John Vervaeke. I mean, he transformed your life.
Yeah.
Right? It's only fair. If you can find a place to talk about John Vervaeke, then more power to you. That's all I can say. Right?
I'll tell you one of my journeys in. I mean, I started listening to PVK back in 16 or 17, and I was completely unaware of the community. I enjoyed just listening to Paul Vanderklay speak on all the Jordan Peterson stuff, whatever. But as I started seeing the randos, and over time, it's just like, I was like, there's no way I would ever do a rando, because it's like I just felt too much pressure to sound smart or like or like say something, like I was like, oh, I can't do that, and I just didn't really know, like, if I was to participate, like what would be how would I find my way to participate, like I didn't really see what I could offer. I enjoyed listening to everybody. That was great. But I remember exactly. Paul started doing the live streams, and I started watching all the people like come in on the live streams. And I remember one time they did a show about the Symbolic World Conference, like on a Friday afternoon. And that was the one time I was like, oh, like that actually affects me, and I actually have some, like, something I can off, at least it deals with me, so I can off. So I actually joined the stream. And that was like the first time I was like, oh, I actually have something I could say and offer here. And that was like my first like introduction. But then over time, like, the feeling that I needed to be one of the smart people, like a Peugeot or a Vervaeke or all the intellectuals PVK that had on. It was like I knew I couldn't do that. And actually it was hilarious. The first time I started joining streams, my heart was racing. Like, like, oh man, my heart was racing. Like, and then like I realized very quickly that the thoughts I had in my head were a lot more coherent than when I actually tried to speak.
Yeah.
And
That's
and
what
then
I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then I realized quickly, like, oh, PVK is talented. Like all these people that we watch on YouTube, like the Vervaekes and whatnot, that can speak. It's like, wow, how do they do that? Like that's amazing. And I realized quickly, I can't do that. But I found my little space to like listen, and then just if something I can comment on, I'll comment on it and go my merry way. It was actually kind of a nice little way to find my groove within all y'all.
I mean, joke's on you. You're doing it right now. And I think that that's what's really valuable about this space is like you have, like Sherry was pointing to Matt or to Matthew. You have these things that you're finding that are so incredibly meaningful and impactful in your life, and you can't discuss them with anybody else. But if you get the chance to discuss them with somebody else, you can then extract the wisdom in such a way that you can then apply it to other places in your life and actually bring that, like you don't, without using the Vervaeke terms and completely shutting off whoever it is that you're trying to discuss things with, you can actually engage with them at the level that they're at and bring some of that dragon's gold hoard back and give it to the people who need it,
Yes.
but doing so in a way and when that they can actually receive it, because that's a big
Yeah,
part
this
of the
is
problem.
this was one of the connecting points for me and Parlato, which was I don't think me nor Parlato have had much difficulty talking about John Vervaeke with folks who have never heard of him. It's that's not the problem, is finding people to talk at, you know. But there is a sense in which the reason why Vanderklay and Vervaeke are so good at it is because they have the professional what it's not a dialect, it's a discourse is the leftist way of putting it. Basically, they're professional talkers, um, as am I. And so if I figure out a good way to say something, you just say it that way over and over until it becomes secondhand. Only the universalist shall be saved. You know, like, and that is a type of, you know, being rhetorically purposeful or gifted, or it's something you can practice, but it's also like just everybody's different. And so it's more important that you learn how to connect with people who have very different skill sets and giftings and personalities from you than I think it is for you to necessarily have this need or this, which I don't think you were pointing to this, Afriel, but it kind of you could be tempted to a type of Christ complex that, like, oh, the lost and dying people of the world, if only they knew about salience landscaping, then they, you know, the world would be saved. And then we could have conferences of over 400 people, and this would be a real movement with political power that could change the world. It's like, okay.
Preach, Reverend, preach.
Or we could do what Scott said earlier and be useful in the situations that we find ourselves immediately.
Yes.
So if you stumble across the hive mind of a small internet community and it piques your interest, then it's like game on. You've got an opportunity to love and be loved, to see and be seen, to participate. If it's not for you, it's not for you. If life circumstances come up where you need to spend more time on other things, go with God, brother. You know, this is not the church. You know, like, we're not going to shun you. You know, and it's a community, it's a participation, it's a
Well,
it's
really,
fellowship.
really, nobody has ever gone, right? I mean, you could look at it from a very technical standpoint and say, YouTube, you know, the internet, everything's there, it's all there. But also, I just don't think that. It's why I'm not an annihilationist. I just don't think that people can be gone. You know, they still have an effect on your life, and yeah, they still had a part in making you who you are. So that's why ancestor worship is a thing.
But I think what comes next is the culture layer, like going back to what Matthew Raymond Parlato was parlaying. I think.
Is he in trouble?
What? Matthew in trouble?
You used his middle
Parlato's in
name.
trouble. Parlato's in trouble.
Matthew Raymond Parlato.
Save it for the hell stream. Come on, and we'll do a hell stream together, Phlebas.
Every stream's a hell stream if Phlebas isn't there.
Let Neil speak. I should not have interrupted. I'm sorry.
I'll put Phlebas through hell.
Yeah. Every stream that Phlebas can't hop on and give us his glorious face driving a truck is a hell stream for me.
Sorry, Neil. Go ahead.
No, just that the talking, you know, it does get. I was talking to Chad about this maybe a week or so ago, but you know, the same topics do get recycled, do come up over and over again. But there are new topics that come into the space, definitely, or are new ways of looking at old topics. But at some point, and I've I felt this for a while. I think mostly due to my gaming channel, but other things. It's like, if this is the only thing that we're doing, it's, I don't know, it doesn't seem sufficient. It needs, we need additional psychotechnology or additional pursuits to bind us together. And I think the temptation is that
That's
we do
only,
those.
I mean, that depends though on what it is you want to, what you're building.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think it's for everybody. And I'm not saying everybody has the same role in that. And some people will just need TLC as a listening and soundboard for, like McMo said, being seen and seeing. And but I think what we're doing that's, let's say, deeper than a common church is engaging with the culture in a way that both redeems and transcends the culture simultaneously. I become more aware of this over time, just watching more and more branding over time. Like there's one common motif of branding, which I would say is memory, but it's not nostalgia. It's something like memory in a redemptive hope, like a way of using the old to redeem the new, or make the new, or something like that. Yeah, that's the common vein of branding that I see. It's kind of like, and I'm probably projecting quite a bit here, but I sense I'm not far off from the rest of TLC, is that, I do not resent my upbringing. I do not resent the culture that I grew up in. I am distinctly American. I love the West. I love that culture. I love that tradition. I love all of it that brought us here.
USA, USA.
Exactly. And I love everything that has allowed us to learn from our mistakes and forgive ourselves and our enemies and continue improving as the West over the history of history. And I think what makes the United States so remarkable is our ability to stare at our sins in the face and acknowledge our sins and learn from them. Yeah. And anyway, that's not only the U.S., but that's the West more generally. And so I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and I do believe in looking at our culture and separating the wheat from the chaff. And yeah, but at the same time, I can see the problems in our culture all the way back when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, even the things that I love. Like I can see the rampant sex and violence. I can see the virtues that have been completely forgotten in favor of John Wayne, So yeah, no, I guess what I'm saying is I love the layer above the conversational as well, and I hope we all do more of that. Whether it's branding, whether it's worldly news, like whether there's loads of it, and I'm sure I sense we're just touching the iceberg there. So let me well, anybody
Wait,
have any
Neil.
thoughts on that? Because I have a completely different topic. It's
Let me.
related.
Okay,
Go ahead.
perfect. Let me interject right now. I have to go soon. I've probably got like 10, 15 more minutes. Unless Neil or somebody streams this over to Chad's channel, or if it gets shared with Grail Country, I'm fine if you guys want to keep it going. But I've got to leave in 15 minutes. And so I propose a 5-minute estuary inversion where we now put on the tables the things that we wish we would have talked about. And I can go first, bouncing off of what Neil just said, which is to also riff off of one of Luke's favorite phrases, that memory is the purveyor of reason, which I'm sure he got from George MacDonald or somebody like that. And say instead, the remix is memory is the purveyor of redemption. And the reason I think that's true is because in order for something to be redeemed, it has to have a history of needing redemption. And so how can you know that something is redeemed if you can't remember, right? Like to have no memory of it would just be to be in Eden, the Garden of Eden again. There would be no sin consciousness. And so to basically memory as the purveyor of reason or of redemption. And then let's go to see what Neil wanted to talk about. And then we'll go order of screen, Scott, Matthew, Afriel, and then we'll let Sherry have the last word.
I'm going to take my opportunity to pass.
Nicely done.
Is it me?
It's Neil now.
Okay, good.
Talked to my friend who's a burner, revolves around Burning Man, and there's drama in the Burning Man community regarding bureaucracy, and basically there are sub burns. So there are small regional burns that occur. And now that there's a social network of burners, they're like, why do we need the big bureaucracy taking our money and wasting our money when we can just throw our own events our own way and have a subculture that's better than this mammoth culture? And they've corrupted it with their money and scale and da 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 da. So you got the denominational splits, meta evangelical Burning Man going on. And I think that's fascinating. It's the same patterns all the way down. The deconstructions will continue all the way down until morale improves.
Very nice, very nice. All right, Parlato, you're up.
Yeah, I just have just some thoughts bouncing around. Was it the Merlin quote that the problem with man is he forgets? And then I just rewatched Game of Thrones a couple weeks back when I was feeling down and out a little bit, and I think the what is he? The Night King. He's trying to. His main goal is to like erase the man's memory, man's ability to remember through the three-eyed raven, and then also to do the Verbeke thing. You know, the 4 ways of knowing are laid right on top of the different types of memory, with propositional as semantic, procedural as procedural, perspectival as episodic, and then the very mysterious participatory is like this mystical glue that we call, you know, the moment-to-moment memorying of the self. And so, yeah, I just think to redeem would be to acknowledge that it has a history that needs to be redeemed, but also to know it, right? To come into a relationship that you're caring about this aspect. Yeah, right. It's like that we are this intelligent creature. We you know, man wants to know. And so, anyways, yeah, it's just a bunch of bumbling there, I guess. But I just found that a very interesting connection.
Well said, well said. What comes to mind is the verse from Paul, putting aside what came behind and pressing on towards the goal. You know, and that whole thing. Maybe that wasn't Paul. I think it was. But Afriel, you're next.
So I'll keep mine shorter. Just something from the New Age bullshit that Grizz and I ascribe to that has resonated with me pretty strongly, and I feel is very applicable for how people are approaching estuary. We encourage a dispassionate attempt to share information without concern for numbers or quick growth among others. That you attempt to make this information available is, in your term, your service. The attempt, if it reaches one, reaches all.
Well said, well said. All
Doesn't
right,
sound
Sherry.
New Agey at all.
Oh, I'm torn between talking about Steiner's Christ consciousness and showing you the pictures I colored in my coloring book.
Pictures.
Redundant.
Pictures.
Redundant.
Redundant. Well, okay. You wanted to talk about things the community can be doing, Neil. There's this thing called YouTube University. I live in a very rural area, and a lot of people here are homeschooling their kids, and their children are learning incredible things on YouTube. Like, seriously, I learned like carpentry. They're building things, they're gardening, they're, you know, like, YouTube is not for entertainment in these families. YouTube is a university. They're learning languages. They're doing things, right? And that's how, like, before Jordan Peterson, I never even watched YouTube. My son would come home from school and he'd be like, "Mom, I want to show you this, you know," I think it was Jackass videos at the time or something. And I was just like, oh, such garbage. I don't even know why you're watching it, you know? And so it wasn't until Jordan Peterson that I started watching YouTube, and I was doing it because of the learning opportunity. I watched all of his classes, right? His university classes. And anyway, And that's how I've approached this whole space, as a place of learning, higher learning, because I didn't finish high school and I didn't go to university. So this is my university. And I've read books that I've never would have read had I not been part of this community. I've had conversations about topics that I wouldn't have known about without this community. And so I think, and it's something that I try to contribute to in the community, is that this is also a space for higher learning. And I think that I find it, I'll just say this really bluntly, I find it a little bit sad that that kind of content is not engaged in as well as the, well, I'm not going to say it. Just gonna, okay.
There's a prefrontal cortex side of the internet, and then there's an amygdala side of the internet. And the amygdala side of the internet is pretty much pure garbage, trash. But it's always good to remember that our Lord was born in a manger. But Neil, I guess you have the last word, since you guys can hang around or something. But I got to drive now, so I don't know how my service is going to be.
Well, I just want to ask Sherry. So, are you suggesting that we do more teaching in the corner? That we
I don't think we have any right to teach. Like, I don't consider myself, qualified to teach, but I think it's fun to invite people to engage with certain things that are interesting that we can discover together. So that's what I did with Nate, that's actually why I became part of Grail Country. We started with a book. We continued with another book. We went through another book. We invited guests on to go through books, right? And for me, that was my opportunity to read the book, to discuss the book. If I had questions about the book, I could ask them.
Neil of all people should be aware that one of the best ways of teaching is to learn in public. And because that was one of the first insights that Neil ever smacked me with, was just that, like, for him personally, the fact that, one of the best ways for him to learn something was to give him the pressure and the problem of having to explain it to other people. And so, I think that there is that we're doing, which is kind of what Sherry was saying as well.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just, what was that other, what else did you ask me, Neil? There was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember anymore. Oh yeah. And then I tried doing, I also went through, like, I've read things on Grail Country just to share them because they were so good. And I also went through, like, some essays and some sermons and, done the Meister Eckhart Christmas sermon with Jed and imagination essays and so on. Right. So that's kind of my personally, that's what I love to do here, is to just really engage with interesting books and use it as a platform for learning, and you also engage people who are, maybe searching the internet for other stuff. Like, they don't want to watch a conversation, like an inside baseball conversation about the little corner, right? I wouldn't. If there was a community on YouTube that were talking about their community, I wouldn't watch it.
Well, it also reminds me too, and I'll be quick because I know you're trying to shut. It also reminds me of that Socratic insight too, of like the people that you're going through those books with. Those are people, and you're gonna try and show you their perspective, and the best way to kind of self-reflect is to use another person in a reciprocal relationship to kind of get a window into you, right? They're mirrors into what we are, because you're a human too. And so
yeah. And there's some,
I think that's a
go ahead, Nicole.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that's a perfect callback to the beginning of the stream. The title of the stream is, "What does TLC care less about, Kierkegaard or evolution?" And the truth is, it doesn't matter. Me and Neil owe it to everybody here to keep talking about the things that we want to nerd out about for the benefit of all.
Yeah, do it. I think so too.
Joe Biden voice: hurts nobody, helps everybody. It's the economy. All right, real final last thoughts, and then I'm going to shut it down.
Love
or
you
just
guys.
wave goodbye. Bye, Parlato. Love you, Neil.
If I see
your good
Kierkegaard 3
relation.
times on my stream, does it summon you?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been told. Sometimes I see it and just ignore it. So if I don't comment, it's just because I don't feel like it. But you know, yeah, the bat signal gets sent out one way or the other these days.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks, McMo. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.